when you're wrestling with your kids, there's a connection there because you're both engaged in the same thing. It's tickling, it's wrestling, it's lifting people up and dropping them. There's a game there. It's a simple game of wrestling and lifting and laughing, and that's all it has to be. And there you are together. The two of you are doing the same thing. Your energy is very similar.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Parenting on Purpose. Today is all about bringing out your inner child and why you should while you're engaging with your little ones. I have best-selling author, I have best-selling coach, Matt Petrock here with me today, all the way from Seattle, Washington. Welcome to the show. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you so much. Since I used to live in Seattle, it's kind of like a homecoming and kind of jealous that you guys get seasons and it's always hot. But hey, that's okay. We'll definitely trade it for the sunshine.
Yeah. We're still in the heart of winter here, so you're probably happier in Florida.
I do miss the trees. The first thing I thought when I moved to Seattle is like, oh my gosh, like these are trees. Like everything in Florida looks like a shrub in comparison to what you guys have going on.
Yeah, for sure. We got the best trees.
And it is the evergreen state. It's beautiful. So I'm so excited to have you on the show. Everything about your website, your courses, your books, everything that you do really embodies your love of creativity. So we're going to start in an interesting place. I want you to actually start with the story of your last name, because I think if that doesn't embody the creativity that you guys have in your family, nothing does. And then from there, tell us a little bit about yourself, the creative path that you've taken in your adulthood, and now how that's kind of come into play now that you're a dad yourself.
Yeah, my wife and I, when we got married a few years back, we decided to combine our names because we kind of wanted that fresh name that would embody both of us. And, why not? I think we live in a time now in our world and our culture where you can kind of make your own labels for yourself. And you don't have to necessarily stick with traditions if you don't feel like they fit for you. And you can have fun and play and kind of make your own rules, just like when you're playing and being creative.
That's awesome. I love it. That's so cool. That's fantastic. So tell us a little bit about yourself. I know that you've written books. I know you have courses. I know that you engage a lot with children at preschools. Talk a little about what you do and the importance of play.
Yeah, everything I do kind of involves play. I'm a dad, for one thing, of a 2-year-old, and so we play constantly, and I have to find new ways to get him to engage his imagination and be silly, but also I have to get on his silly level. I teach preschoolers in Seattle, and I've been doing that for about 7-8 years. And I come in every day with a ukulele, some puppets, musical instruments, and those kids keep me on my toes. I have to always be ready to make up a song on the spot, make up a story on the spot, respond to what they're giving me. And I think all parents should have some ability to respond to what your kids give you, even if it's bonkers and wild and silly, and just go with it. Don't overthink it and just have fun. I make art. I'm an abstract artist too, and that's very improvisational as well. Written some children's books, which are just kind of, again, just capturing the silliness, the simple joys that children find in life. Yeah.
Do you find that keeping this, I don't know if this is like asking a tree, like if it has bark, but if that's an analogy, I just made it. But I don't know if this question is going to land because you are so creative, but do you see the benefits in like your cognition as an adult, or just maybe your energy levels because you allow yourself to engage in that play versus, other adults who kind of take a more serious role and they're, I feel like maybe limits you a little bit.
Yeah, I think it's easy to kind of define yourself as an adult. I'm an adult. This is how adults behave. And you kind of have these stereotypes in your mind that you have to conform to as an adult. Well, you don't necessarily have to. You can break out of that from time to time. Of course, there are times to be an adult. And when you're a parent, you have to be the adult a lot. But you can also you can get on the kid level, get in that playful state of mind. And it actually it provides a lot of relief. It relieves stress. It frees up your thinking. It raises your energy levels. I honestly just think it's good for you.
It's
And
just
it's
fun.
fun. Yeah, it's just
It's
fun.
like my favorite way to decompress after a day of work. I know it's so good. That's awesome. So I know your course is mainly about teaching parents the benefits of play and like how to help engage with their kids. So I don't know if you want to start there, but I'd love to learn, some of those tips or what you see most frequently. Anything that feels right for you in your end.
Yeah, I think one of the best things that a parent can do with their kids, and based on the things that I was doing in my course, like twofold. One is movement. So just put on a song and dance and move with your kids. And don't overthink it. Don't try to look cool. In fact, cool has nothing to do with it at all. Be silly. Be awkward. If that's how you feel, just be it, Your kids aren't judging you. Not your preschoolers anyway. Maybe your teenagers are. That's
Yeah.
not what I don't teach teenagers for that reason. But and then vocally, practice doing call and response. The simplest game that you can do with your kids vocally is call and response. And you can make it up on your own. You could say, let's go outside, let's go outside, let's go play, let's go play.
Cool.
You and daddy, making our way. I mean, just, it's a
Hey.
freestyle. You mess it up,
Yeah.
and it's amazing how quickly kids get call and response. Maybe not your two-year-olds or your babies, of course. Kids have to have some language going on, but like call and response, I mean, I find it works. I can teach kids within like 10 seconds, you know?
I think even younger kids, like I really even think like you're, one. Like I think music speaks to a different part of your brain than the linguistics,
Mm.
right? From my recollection, and I think that even can develop earlier.
Mm-hmm.
So depending on where they are with the rest of it, it might even help them catch on. I know
Yeah.
my son was so into music so early, and I like it was those god awful Coco Melon like whatever
Yeah.
era, and everyone's like. And we're not big TV people, but I love the music. And he learned so much vocabulary from listening to the song.
Yeah.
I think it's a great way to teach kids.
Yeah, I totally agree. And you can do gibberish too.
That's awesome.
If you don't even want to use words, repeat after me. Boom, boom, cha. Boom, boom, cha. Z da zo. Z da zo. And then you're getting those sort of like enunciation, vowels, consonant kind of practice too, if you want to look at it kind of educationally. But it's also just kind of fun. And as kids discover how to make noises, they start to explore that stuff because they're like, what can I do with my mouth here? Like,
Yeah. Oh yes. I have a just turned 3-year-old boy. There's a lot of fun noises that come
Yeah,
along
exactly.
with that.
Does
That's
that
so
answer your
awesome.
question?
I love it. Yeah, I like the call and respond. I think that's a great one. I wonder if I think it's very valuable to have tools for parents because everyone engages differently. And I don't think there's a right or
Right.
wrong. It's just whatever feels fun to you. I know like each family has their own
Mm-hmm.
culture. And as your kids just kind of see what you do, they'll model
Yeah.
that. But I think a lot of parents on our channel are here because they want to just be open to some other
Yeah.
things, right? And if they're people who are in the garden and they're maybe not musically inclined, then maybe it would be fun for them to do that. Or if they're a little bit
Mm-hmm.
more mathematic and puzzles and the Rector sets, and maybe they want to explore more arts and crafts and like that type of thing. So if I understand correctly, like anything that has to do with movement with your body and rhythmic type things, just voice, just kind of integrating all that and just having fun with
Yeah,
it.
and just not overthinking it, really just doing it, just going for it, because kids aren't really thinking in the way that adults do. They don't analyze
So true.
in the same way that we do. They're not planning. They're not doing that on the level that we do that. So we need to just turn off that part of ourselves and be more impulsive, kind of more spontaneous.
Love it. I know you mentioned before we started recording, just the importance of being present as a parent. It seems like a great, like, as long as where your attention goes, your energy flows kind of thing, right? So if you're present, they kind of spirit moves you and whatever goes.
If you're very present to your kids, then you're going to get ideas for what to do because you're just feeling out that moment.
I love it. Now you talked a little bit about before about meeting your kids on their level. Can you speak a little bit about that and how that changes as their cognition and their abilities change, and then maybe our ability as a parent to like engage and play with them as they develop and grow?
Yeah, I think it kind of comes down to like empathy. You're just basically, it'd be easy to discount a kid's behavior. Oh, that doesn't make sense. No, that's wrong. Like, it's weird. I don't understand you, because kids they're expressing themselves in ways that maybe we don't immediately understand. And so it's easy to discount them.
Yeah.
But if you can get on their level, oftentimes you can kind of figure it out, or you can guess and like try things and intuitively sort of connect with them. It's a hard thing to describe, but like, when you're wrestling with your kids, there's a connection there because you're both engaged in the same thing. It's tickling, it's wrestling, it's lifting people up and dropping them. There's a game there. It's a simple game of wrestling and lifting and laughing. And that's all it has to be. And there you are together. The two of you are doing the same thing. Your energy is very similar. To use that as an example, like, or if you're singing gibberish songs, la, 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 la. If your kid's singing like that, don't be like, that's not a song, Be like, oh, I like the song you're singing, la, 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 and join in. Even if it's a little bit of gibberish and you don't know what the song is, something they're just making up. I think as adults, it's easy for us to be like, oh, I don't understand what you're doing. What you're doing is weird. And then, that can be very unhealthy for a kid to hear that from.
Yeah, it squanders their career. Yeah, now it's that sets off on an cascade of things. Right now, it's like, oh, I'm not being approved of. Who I am is not okay. I have to change, and it's crazy.
Yeah.
And then it's also just because we think we've gone through it, even though we're so disconnected from it as adults, we think we understand it, and it's kind of the opposite. Like every time I was challenged with something through my children growing up, I would always so introspective that I'd be like, what is this? And I would like research it. And when my son, who has an incredibly like verbose vocabulary, he would go back to these random stages of like just sounds and phonics and gibberish. And every time he did, it always was a preface to him actually having like massive gaps. So because they're deconstructing words. So now they might know how to say ball or beach, but now they're messing with each little component. It's kind of like stringing noodles on a string or playing and seeing how the primary colors interact. They're just playing with the elements of their world to see what they can do with them. And if we're not present as parents, we could like very easily
shut it down.
And that's scary.
Yeah, it is scary.
Yeah, it's not good.
And it's easy to forget that what kids are doing is pretty sophisticated. Like you said, they are figuring things out very proactively and very effectively. Like you said, they're actually working. It may seem random. It may seem nonsense, but it's actually not. It's actually really effective, and it's helping them to grow. And it's us who don't understand. They know what they're doing.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like effortless for them, right? Like we've gotten to a place in our life where we don't play anymore, right? Like that's kind of the whole vision behind what we do. Like struggle has replaced flow and work has replaced play in our life. So we kind of juxtapose that on like any entity that comes to our home, like, so instead of just letting them work on us, which I think happens, right? That's the joy of being a parent. That's why people have so much fun with it. That's why we keep doing it. I don't know. People keep having babies for some reason.
Right. I mean, even the most serious parent can get really learn that joy from having a kid and remember what it was like to be a kid by having one. Yeah.
Right. Thank God for that. I know. I saw this really cool TED Talks a few years back. My husband and I watched it before we decided to have Gabriel, and it talked about like when you're alive and you're younger, you have like these really high emotions, and you have these super low emotions, and then through age and through response of other people and through feedback and through criticism, you start to really hedge your emotions. So you're still feeling like ups and downs, but it's like this, like it's nothing really crazy. And then you have a kid. And so for the first time, like you feel elation and you feel like deathly dread all within like a millisecond span of each other. Like, don't touch that outlet. And, oh my God, you just said a word. And it's like for the first time ever, we're not hedged anymore. We're allowed to really feel the spectrum of emotion. And the net result of that is joy, even though there's some low moments. which just goes to show you, like what you're saying with play, um, it just gives you more of a, I guess I think of it in my head, it just allows you to kind of have a higher resonance and frequency. So you kind of pick up on that stuff more because you let yourself
Yeah.
be there, right? Super fun. That's so cool. I love that. So if people aren't, you said something about like getting on their level. What does that mean to you when you say getting on your kids' level?
I think it means kind of trying to match their energy. And,
Love it.
not, if my son's frustrated or angry, I don't have to, of course, match that perfectly, but I can show him that I'm with him right now while he's feeling frustrated, angry. I can keep eye contact. I find that eye contact is really, really important. Whether you're having fun and playing or whether it's a sad, angry moment, you don't have to have constant eye contact. Of course, that's unnatural, but like make that
Sure.
look like, you know what I mean? Like my,
I'm just like
yeah, yeah.
look
Like
at my
don't
kid's
take me
eye.
too literally here. Don't be like stare at your kid and not blink. Like you're gonna freak him out. But
Yeah.
but like I notice when he's mad, he wants me to notice. He wants me to look at him, and when I look at him and I nod my head, yeah, I hear you, man. It tends to move. Yeah, he feels recognized. And if he's feeling zany, and I look at him and I'm like and I match his zaniness, he feels validated. And he feels like, oh yeah,
Love it.
you reckon. I don't know what it is like about seeing somebody else do what you're doing makes you feel good. You know what I mean? If
So
like
good.
I, if I was to, if you were to say to me, hey, I really like the shirt you're wearing, then I'm like, that's thank you. I like your earrings, and I do like your earrings, great earrings. But like
Thank you.
if that's a kind of our adult version of that, right? We sort of like we
Right.
recognize
Yeah.
things about each other that make us feel seen. And for kids, they have their own version of that. If I tell Wit I like his pants, they may not mean much to him.
Yeah.
But if
Yeah.
I
Exactly.
match his dance moves, that means something to him. He's like, oh, and especially because he can
Love
make an
that.
adult do something. Like we're constantly making our kids do stuff. For them to make us do something, and not because they're yelling at us
That's awesome.
necessarily, but because we're having fun together. That's meaningful.
Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful. And it's meaningful in like in a deep way that I don't fully like understand other than I'm so happy to be like in that participatory
Mm-hmm.
presence and just like it's interesting. I have the most incredible parents. I have the like most incredible parents. But I just think there's a difference in um like age group with like our generation versus theirs and that type of thing where you allow yourself to like not go into those stereotypes or like the play mode or maybe it's just because my parents I had older parents, right? Maybe it's a different story when you're younger and they're more energetic, I don't know, but they're the most amazing, incredible, and they're very energetic. But my point is like they're not on the get on the floor with you and like giggle and do that kind of stuff the way that I do, but they still allowed me to do it,
Yeah.
which is like really cool. So that's awesome.
Might be enough. Like I was a theater nerd and I'm a goofball and a comedian and I teach and stuff. So that's a little more in my wheelhouse. It's not everybody's wheelhouse.
That's
I mean,
awesome.
sometimes you just got to be present, like you said. Like you don't necessarily have to get on the floor with your kids, but if you just watch and listen, that goes a long way. Just being present, just literally being in the room, and not being on your phone. You know.
And not be on your phone. Yeah, I saw that a meme the other day that like just it like scared me to my core. And it was like kids trying to connect with their parents, and their parents were like, in the way we all get when we're in our alternate
Yeah.
reality. And it was like, wow. And I understand there's so many utilitarian
Oh yeah.
phones, and it's important. And it's not like you said, it's not how like often, but there needs to be time where that you really are connecting. You said something a second ago. It reminded me of a South African tribe that uses that I want to say it's North African. I think I just lied to you. It's North African tribe, and they use this term called Ubuntu, and it's like I see you, not like I'm looking at you, but like because I understand you, I have a better perspective of myself. And because I see you, I know like how we're the same and different, like all together with one
Hmm.
word, right? Like how cool is that? But when you were describing like getting on your kids' level and really just being like present and experiencing things with them, I think that's part of the tribal process of being a
Hmm.
human that predates, where we are now in life. And it's really just that experiential, like they're being
Hmm.
seen, they're being validated, they're being told you are safe, you are here, you're valued for being different and being who
Hmm.
you are, which I think is so.
Yeah, it is.
I think that's so.
It's super important.
So, with all of your experience with kids and teaching, have you noticed like a difference with kids who have this type of an environment at home readily versus like kids who don't?
No, I couldn't really speak on that. I just haven't, I couldn't, don't have enough people in my life to have witnessed sort of those different energies. I would just have to, uh, I'm sure it's out there, but I feel like my friend groups and my social world is fairly similar,
Like you, which
you
is
know,
amazing.
or kind of,
Yeah, it's awesome.
you kind of hang out with like-minded people. And I have kind of a bunch of silly, pretty, uh,
That's awesome.
mindful folks who, yeah, I don't know what they're like behind closed doors, but, yeah, you know,
Well, your vibe attracts your tribe, right? And I think where my intellectual curiosity was going is like, is there a benefit or a detriment of or of not? But I do also think that kids are
yeah,
resilient and
yeah.
they're smart. And I think that if there's a part of them that isn't getting that
Hmm.
stimulation at home, they're going to find it other places. Like I go pick up my son from daycare, and before I let him see me, I just watch him interact, and like he's an incredible joy at home
Hmm.
as well. But he is different, right? Like the personality, it's just cute to watch your kids be
Mm,
people without your
totally.
influence and just see how they are. So I can totally see that kid like just really like that's why the arts are so important, sports and music, because even if it's not something they're getting at home, they can at least
Yeah.
have that
Yeah.
interaction, right? With
We
people.
can't be all things to our kids, and, you know,
That'd be
yeah,
exhausting.
it'd be exhausting. It's just impossible. And like, that's why it's so important to have other adults around and other kids and other people who can teach your kids about stuff that you don't know how to teach them. And like, they can learn from these different influences. And, like my little guy, he's going to be an only child most likely, but he's very gregarious. He loves people. And so I see him having a very strong social impulse that is going to take him in directions that I could never predict, and
Yeah.
that's exciting. It's really crazy too. It's like you said, it's like, wow, you're just your own person. Like you've gotten some stuff from me, certainly, but like you're also like a mysterious entity that is going to go on its own path. And yeah. Yeah, and you just sort of trust to
Yeah, that's
that
so
because,
awesome.
yeah, there's no perfect formula. And parents that might seem like they're not doing a good job might actually be doing a great job. It's really important not. I
Yeah,
really try not to judge other parents unless they're doing something really extreme.
for sure.
But like, because you
Yeah.
just,
If parenthood has taught you anything, it's like no
yeah,
judgment because
exactly.
you don't
Yeah,
know.
like,
That's so awesome. That's awesome. Um, you said something a second ago, and I thought of a question about it. Now I'm trying to remember. It's fine.
reel it
It's
back
okay.
in.
I love this. So, what with so I know you play music. Are you teaching your son to play any instruments or?
Yeah, that's a good question, because yeah, I am, and I yes and no. He's 2, so he's still pretty small. But what I my philosophy at this point has been like just play around him, like, and then if he wants to play, let him play, and he
Nice.
does. He actually will pick up the ukulele and strum it. He picks up our guitar and strums it. He'll play, and he'll try to sing like this kid songs he knows, like "Ba Ba Black Sheep" and "Twinkle Twinkle," while he's kind of strumming. And that's him. Like, I haven't really asked him to do those things or
That's
pushed him because I just don't know how effective that is. You hear all the stories about kids who were forced to play piano and it just didn't work. And like, in some ways, forcing kids to do things does work because, they stick it out and then they end up doing it. But then sometimes you got to let kids discover things for themselves. It's a hard balance. But yeah, with him, I just try to have instruments around. I let him watch me play, my wife play, so he watches her. And, if he didn't
Nice.
have any interest, then it'd be like, okay, he's not really inclined at this point, and that's fine. But he is drawn to it, but he, just kind of does it when he feels like it.
I wonder what part of that is like him being inclined to it because he's like pre-genetically disposed because you're both really good, or I honestly just think all
Yeah.
kids are just drawn
Yeah.
to rhythm and movement, and like I just have never been in a room with kids and music where like young kids are like, no, I'm
No,
good.
right.
Like
I know.
never
I,
in my
I
life.
teach music to preschoolers, and they are 99.9% of the time into it. And even the really quiet kids who are observing and not really engaging physically, sometimes those kids are actually taking it in the most, which is also pretty
I
wild
believe it.
because their brains are just like sponges, and they have to process things from a distance, and
That's,
then suddenly they're in. So yeah, but yeah, I think music is very universal. I can go out on a limb and say that.
eh. Well, we're energetic beings, right? So it's frequency, it's energy, it's attunement, and I think there's even if you're not even looking at it from a scientific or spiritual perspectives, it
Yeah,
just makes sense, right? Because it's those same frequencies. I also can see kids like being gravitated toward it because it's a way to like physically move energy. Like I
yeah,
think as human beings, we've obviously through generations have adapted this differently. But I mean, I remember learning about tribes that just stood there together and they
mm,
just like shake as like a mechanism to like get back to homeostasis.
mm,
So I don't think those are always taught. I think that's kind of just a part in our protoplasma in
yeah,
our genes. So we enjoy movement, right? It's just part of who we are as people,
yeah. That's
which
a
is
good
fun.
point. And I think you're right. Like, and with kids, they're just compelled to move and compelled to, like, they just like bounce. They literally like bounce around, and just like run and like kick their
Yeah.
legs in the air, and like this movement thing is so inherent. Like we have to like remind ourselves, like, I'm gonna go to the gym. I'm gonna schedule my physical
Yeah, I
exercise.
gotta
Yeah, I'm gonna
stretch.
stretch.
Yeah,
Whereas them, they're just like
exactly.
constantly like doing it. And
Oh,
yeah, so it makes my job pretty easy in some ways because they're just ready to go. I think in some ways it'd be harder to teach
it
adults
just makes it
because I'd be like,
fun.
okay, guys, let's just get up and dance to the drum, and they'd be like, I'm good. Yeah.
Just get on the phone. No, it's awesome. Oh man, they're such great like teachers. It's
Hmm.
such a blessing. I think preschool does a really good job of not like putting people into a box yet, right? Like it's for the most part the schools that I've seen and or been a part of are very like Montessori or like wide or just creative based, just to get kids into a
Yeah.
lot of different things. And that's part of like I feel movement is a huge part of that. Like the more we move, the more you're physically interacting with things, and it gives kids the space to
Yeah.
be creative, right? Um, I read the study once. I'm curious to see what your thoughts are and if you find this correlates with what you've seen in your work. Crayola did a study at age 7 is when they did a study amongst like customers, and at age 7 is when a huge dip occurred in when they would kids would interact with their products, and then they did like studies around that with what kids drew when they were given crayons. So all the way up to age 7, it was very like fantastical, fun, rainbows, like colors used in different things, maybe like purple skies. But then age 7, something like happens, and everything obviously starts to fall into this box where it's like the sky is blue, the grass is green, the birds are this color, houses are like boxes now,
Mm.
they're not octagons or something creative. So basically, it's like the bastardization of
Yeah.
creativity at age 7.
Wow.
Um, do you notice that when working with kids that there's like a plateau or a drop
Well,
off?
I teach kids that are younger than 7, but what you're saying makes a lot of sense to me because even when I was a kid, I remember when we started to get taught how to do things correctly. Oh no, this is what the accurate,
Mm-hmm.
realistic version of a house is. These are the colors that you would realistically use on a tree, and So I think we've all been through that where we were sort of indoctrinated into like the more correct way of doing things. And, it's like there's a place for that. It's okay to be a realistic artist. It's a great thing to be a realistic artist, but you always have to leave space for imagination and fun. And like abstraction is my favorite art. I love messy, colorful art. I like kids' art. I like stuff that just looks like it was made by a kid, even though it might have been made by like a 60-year-old artist who's been studying for decades. You know what I mean? And like, I think that a lot of adults have to relearn it. We have to kind of go back and be like, how do I just make? Like, I know a lot of friends, artists who are like, or people who are like, I don't really do art. I'm not good enough. And it's like, well, art's really not only about being good. You can be good. It's great if you can draw a very, beautiful tree or a landscape, but you can also just do art for fun. And that's okay. You don't have to be good at it. Like adults are constantly talking themselves out of doing things because they're not good at it. Why do you have to be good? Because other adults might judge you. Well, yeah, that's legit. Like I don't want to be judged, but like also like
have a happier day, man. Come over to my side. I may be sucking.
Yeah, exactly. You gotta dance like nobody's watching. You gotta make art. You gotta, I make art, but I'm not a trained artist. I just make it because it's fun. And I've tried to get better, but I've also like just always reminded myself like just have fun. Yeah, exactly.
Fun. Like I've never met somebody who's like so enjoys doing something and they're just really bad.
Right.
I've just never seen it. Right? Like if it brings you joy, and I don't care if you're off pitch or whatever. Like it doesn't matter. And it's so amazing. That was a beautiful mirror because I think every parent goes through that. And as much as we try, at least I'll speak for my house, as much as we try to like allow our children that space, like it's something in you. Like today, my son is playing next to our car, and it's like, oh, baby, don't play on that side. There's cars on that side. Go play over here. This is where the grass is. It's safe. So it's like having to discern or differentiate that from, oh, a house doesn't have that type of door, right? Like it's almost so innate in us that we have to be like, and like then let them do their thing. It's just so funny.
Keeping somebody safe is a little different from like shutting down somebody's impulses, you know what I mean? But it is tricky because sometimes you don't really know what you're doing. Like if it's if you're overly protective or you're being too micromanagey, like that is tricky. I mess it up, but hopefully you're
But they don't know. They just see love, and the kids are so resilient, and that's beautiful. I always tell people the more that you think you're doing a bad job, or the more that you like think about it, just means that you care, and your kid is so lucky to have you, right? So as long as you dispel that judgment sometimes and just have fun, like you're doing the best damn job that kid could ever ask for.
Yeah,
so that's all.
I agree. That's a lot of it. Just try. Just keep trying because you're probably doing a pretty good job. And like nobody aces parenting. Just nobody does. Like if you get a B+, then you're killing it.
You're really killing it. We're gonna set a bell curve on parenting. Do you find that there's an easier or like a better intro instrument for kids? Because I hear guitar and ukulele a lot, and I'm just wondering if that's because there's 4 strings, my ukulele that my husband has over there. Is that like a good gateway?
I think the ukulele is a good one because you can just learn to strum it, and it's very small and you can hold it. But I honestly think the best gateway instruments are percussion, whether it's a drum, a shaker even, or like tapping sticks together, pots and pans, clapping, all those sort of like rhythm hitting stuff kind of instruments. I think are the best because that's like that is like the original instrument probably, like a drum. I'm guessing a drum came even before a guitar or a flute. I think flute, guitar, and drum are kind of, they've been around for thousands of years in some way, but like a drum, every kid that I teach can smack a drum, of course. And it's satisfying, and you can get a great fine drum for pretty cheap, and or just use a pot and pan with a spoon.
And pot, or use exactly a spoon and a pan.
And then try to sing the songs the kids know with them, like Twinkle Twinkle and happy birthday, and while they try to play that drum, and not be too hard on them, like that's not rhythm. You're off rhythm. Like
Yes.
there too. Like relax.
Uh, my brother and his wife gifted my son for Christmas a drum set, and it's got like a snare and a bass. It's got like it's a little setup. He has a little seat, and it's like so funny because he just like in his like you don't even go in the same room as him, and he's like putting on a concert. He's like, "Thank you," and he sits down and he's like, "And now this one," and he's like telling his dolls or like his trucks
That's
like
awesome.
what he's gonna do. It's like the best thing ever. I love it so much.
Yeah.
Oh my god, so good. So good to watch kids play. I just like I love it as an example of like what would our life be without inhibitions, right? And how much more fun.
Yeah, and you can always learn later how
What
to
is
be
that?
really, really good at something. You can go get your instructor when you're 10. If you're still playing the drum and you want to get better, then go hire an instructor and you can refine that. But when you're really little, you want to just maintain that that ability to be free. And then you can hone in. Like I like it when kids sing loud and proud, and they don't have to sing prettily. Just sing loud and proud and confidently. And then if you want to learn to sing like a Disney character, there's vocal coaches who can help you do that down the road. But if you're too nervous, you're not confident, then it's going to be really hard. So if you can learn to just be comfortable with yourself early on, then you can refine it down the road,
Yeah. The confidence thing is huge. You're so right because it's just any type of expression, right? It just tells kids like I'm safe.
Yeah.
I can go have fun with this. Not I have to be reserved. Yeah.
Besides, there's so many singers out there who are not pretty singers, but they're amazing. They have interesting voices. They're gravelly voices. They have really low, weird voices. So there's that too.
Yeah. What is it? The beauty is in the eye of the beholder, right? Like some people like that more sultry. Some people, of course. Yeah. That's what makes it so fun. Awesome. Well, my whole husband's family is all Polynesian, so I've just learned. I learned to stick to my things, which are like cooking and sports. Like I love music, and I love singing. Then I get in a room full of them, and I feel like so remedial. So I've had to like let myself learn to play again because I'm like, wow, you guys are like really good.
Yeah, that's real. I know what you mean.
They're so born with it. It's so cool. I've never seen such a widespread like proclivity, I guess is what I'd call it. Like so many people being so good, but it's not. It's genes, but it's also like these kids are born and they're like given ukuleles and they're like, they're always around that jam session, church, and those type of things just becomes part of their culture.
Exactly. So
cool.
And that's kind of what we're trying to do is like make play and having fun a cultural thing, whether in our little family cultures, even though it may not be related to your cultural background, like I'm Irish and I'm influenced by Irish music, but I wasn't born and raised in like a pub playing traditional Irish music. So I had to learn it kind of later on in life and try to kind of pick up some of that stuff. But it's never too late, and you got to do you.
Dude, yeah, we're always learning. And if you stop learning, then life's not as fun. Well, this reminds me of what we said at the very beginning. Like we're at an age and a place in our evolution where you can decide. Like you were talking about the context of your name, but you can decide what your family value system stands for. And just because you were given one doesn't mean it's what you have to create to move forward. And if, adding creativity and play and presence with your children, even just 30 minutes a day of uninterrupted phone down, focus on your kid play, if that's part of what you want to gift them as a legacy, I mean, I venture to say it'll do a lot more good than, a 401k sitting somewhere or something like that. So that's awesome. I think that's a great lesson and a beautiful thing that you guys are teaching. That's really awesome. Can you give us, I have one more question and then I want to tell people where they can find your work and with you. I know you were showing me your books and it looks so cool. My final question is, if parents can do one thing today or tomorrow, depending on what time they're listening to this, to just add fun into their day, one tip that they could just inject into their day.
Have a dance party. Just play some tunes and just act a fool with your kids.
Love it.
And if you sit at a desk all day long, it's really helpful to do it too because you loosen up your body, loosen up your muscles, you connect with your kid at the same time. You don't have to prepare anything. Just play some music over a speaker. Happy by Pharrell Williams. That's a good one, good go-to for me.
Yes,
You know,
that's a good one.
yeah, have a little dance party. Throw in
Dance
some instruments
dance
if you
party. I
want.
love that.
Throw in some costumes if you want. But you can also just yeah,
Get crazy. That's so good. I love it so much, Matt. This is great. It exudes in your energy, and I'm just so happy for your son and how it gets to experience that. And I'm sure he's going to do some incredible things in life because you're giving him such a beautiful, childhood with all of that
thanks.
fun. That's awesome. Please let our parents know about your course, where to find you, your kids' books, how they can
Yeah. If you
interact
go
with
to my
you.
website, Matty P Creations, MATTYP, as in uh, playful, MattyPCreations.com. That'll have everything that I do, which I have a couple children's books that I've written. There's links for those. There's a link for my Udemy course on how to play imaginatively with your kids. It's really affordable. It doesn't takes you about an hour to do, but there's a ton of stuff in it. And I also have a YouTube channel, so I have like stories, music, and songs with kids on YouTube there as
Yes.
well. That's MattyPCreations.com. And I also make art. So if you're looking for some cool, colorful, wild, abstract art, you'll find that there too. Thanks for having me on the show. This was really, really fun.
You are so welcome. So it is full disclosure. It's 10:10 here on the East Coast. If my husband was downstairs for putting our son down, he has one of those
Yeah.
Montessori beds that's like on the floor. So what ends up happening is we all fall
Oh,
asleep when
yep.
we're reading to him. But otherwise, I would have loved for him to come down and play, have a quick jam sesh. But we're gonna keep your info. We'll definitely do it next
Yeah, and
time.
if I head off now, then I can say goodnight to my son, who is also being put to bed right now on the West Coast. So
Perfect. At a much more
yeah,
respectable time than mine. But it's okay because we have a lot of fun
yeah,
and he'll
no
sleep till late.
judgment. You do. Yeah.
Yeah, this was great.
All right.
This was awesome. Thank you so much for being here. Guys, we love you so much for being here. Thank you. You guys are awesome parents. You guys know the drill. We'll see you next week. Until then, stay beautiful, stay inspired. Thanks, guys.